What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the data coming out for tomorrow, as we have some very important pieces of job openings data, the ISM reports, and all these other things coming out that could cause the market to move quite a bit. So I think there's going to be a big move tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. This could be a make or break for the market's levels. I'm going to be breaking down how this could end up affecting the markets and some very important things to watch for. But before I break anything down, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 6 free stocks. If you put in $500 into the account, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you put in $25,000 into the account, you're guaranteed 70 free stocks, plus 12 months of level 2 market data. This offer ends in just about 2 weeks from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market for the time being. So looking at SPY, we had a very, very interesting day. We ended up gapping down quite a bit on SPY. Let me just pull up the 4-hour and just show you how we gapped down. And then once we gapped down, the market started uptrending. We started to see the buyers step in, and SPY actually managed to make up most of the losses back. It actually pushed back up to almost 457 for close, and the market is still trying to hold this support. But the question is, will we keep holding on, or are we about to just start sinking? So I'm going to be breaking down some data and what's going on with tomorrow first before I break down the charts. Let me first say that for earnings going into tomorrow, there's nothing really too big for today, but for tomorrow we have like Neo, AutoZone, and just more retail stocks out there. We have Campbell's and Chewy, GameStop on Wednesday, which is going to be very interesting. Dollar General, and the list goes on. So it's going to be very important to make sure you guys are ready for earnings. But nothing is going to be as crazy as like an Apple earnings are that huge. Now, for data for tomorrow, we have some very important data coming out. First and foremost, 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the S&P Global Composite PMI and the Services PMI data. This data is going to be very important for understanding how the services sector is looking. And this is very important for the strength of the different sectors that make up the economy as a whole. The Fed is going to be looking at this data, so expect some volatility at 9:45. That's Eastern Standard Time, 15 minutes after market open. And then 30 minutes after open is when we have an even bigger move coming. We have the ISM Services PMI, so more services data. Then we have the JOLTS job openings and job quits coming out. The job openings could be very important for the views of the current administration. It could be very important for consumer sentiment. It's going to be important for the Fed, extremely important. And we'll be watching to see what we end up getting. The consensus is about 9.3 million job openings. The forecast is 9.4 million. If the job openings are decent, the market could actually react positively to it. If we get a negative jobs report, this could also have a very mixed response. So you want to be very, very careful when looking at the data. And we'll just see what happens after 10 a.m. There have been times where the job openings were strong and the market ended up sinking. Other times where it was like strong and the market just pumped. So anything could really happen. They just used all this data as an excuse to pump liquidity into the systems and do what they want to do. So the best thing to do is just wait and see what the move is. The numbers and like the way the market responds is not always consistent, so you just want to be careful. We also have the job quits coming out. We're expecting 3.6 million job quits. This data is very important, so expect some high volatility at 10 o'clock a.m. Now, on top of this, when it comes to the fear and greed index, this is at greed getting very close to the extremes. And on top of this, we're at extreme greed on market momentum. And many indicators are quite overbought. They're at greed, and they are suggesting the market could pull back. However, will the market pull back? In my opinion, the answer is it's possible, but there's still no true confirmation of a big pullback, a big drop that's coming, right? The move SPY made today was not that huge. We just saw a small little pullback. Then we saw the buyers step right back in and the market started uptrending as the day went on. So we're not officially breaking the key support just yet. And that's why I want to talk about this in a lot more detail. So if we go back on the chart, like I was saying earlier, we have this orange trend line you could draw out as our support. This was previous resistance becoming support. Now, I just want to note that when SPY opened today, we gapped down. We have a big gap that's unfilled all the way up here at 459. So if, and this is just going to be hypothetical, okay? if we end up making a bullish move tomorrow, there's a chance, okay, that if the data causes the market to launch, SPY could technically pump all the way back up to 459 to 460 and try to break this high right here and try to at least fill this gap. There's always a possibility of that, so just be prepared just to be safe. If SPY gets above 458, after the data comes out, this thing is going to launch and try to retest this high up here to get back to the 459s. There's always that possibility, and that's why I warned you guys to not become too complacent and to be open-minded to anything. If we're bearish after the data comes out and we get a rug pull in the markets, okay, I'm going to be watching. Let me actually bring up my extended hours, because when you look at EMAs, I believe it's very important to have them open. I believe it's very important to look at the 4-hour time frame and look at the 50 EMA at just under 454. That's going to be critical support alongside this support trend line right here, which is very close to it, around this like 454.5 areas, like right here. So the 454 to 455, 454.5, excuse me, area is where we have this key support where the orange trend line happens to be. If we lose it, if we break below 454, I think this thing is going to come sinking back down to 452, and then we're going to see a bigger move to the downside. So it all depends. You could draw this out and say, a bunch of different things, guys. It all depends on interpretation. One could argue that we have like a head and shoulders like pattern right here. And we're about to see this thing just sort of uptrend like this, make its way up towards this high, then eventually just like fall like this. That's one possibility for like the bearish possibility. And I wouldn't rule out this as a possibility. Now, the bullish case is going to be that like maybe we kind of like push up a little bit more, and then we just end up filling this gap. And I don't know if we just try to break 460 or not. That's going to depend. We could form like a double top here and just like come back down, but a test of 459 to 460 is like the bullish case. The bearish case would be us kind of like popping and maybe breaking below this wedge right here, and kind of rejecting off like a head and shoulders like pattern. This could be our left shoulder. This could be our head. Maybe we're about to form like a small right shoulder. Maybe it's a little bigger. But this is basically the more bearish case where we get the rejection and we just come back down. So it all depends on, in my opinion, the data coming out for tomorrow. Will this cause the market to pump or drop? I'm open-minded to anything. Okay. Don't forget, on the 4-hour time frame, SPY has this unfilled gap up here, up to 459. So it is possible we get one more pump. They push it up again, and then we end up dropping later on. That's a possibility. It's also possible that the data causes the rug pull. We'll just have to wait and see. But here's what I want you to have in mind. SPY has not officially broken down and turned super bearish yet. We haven't officially done that, and I prefer to just be like really patient and see if we get the break before I turn into like a bigger bear. That's what I talked about on Friday, and I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to be very adaptive in a market like this. If we lose support, then I'll say, yeah, we can drop lower, right? But even if we do drop lower, my view is still unchanged about the markets. I think that if there's a dip over the next 1 to 2 weeks, that's fine. Okay. I think the market's going to be bullish after that for the last 2 weeks of December. So I just see a really good buying opportunity if we get some kind of dip. Okay. But just to be safe, watch and see if this is like a head and shoulders after the data comes out, or if it just keeps going, if it remains bullish and we try to fill this gap. Make sure you watch that carefully. I'm not going to turn bearish until we officially break the orange trend line and we get below our 4-hour 50 EMA right here. So we'll be watching all of this very, very carefully going into tomorrow. Watch for confirmation to turn really bearish. Watch for confirmation to turn bullish. Right now, I think the market may pop a bit, and there might be either a drop from here, or we could pop a little bit more and then drop after the gap fill. I think that's the most probable case, but it all depends on the data coming out for tomorrow. All right, that's what I'm seeing for SPY, at least for the time being. Make sure you watch those levels very carefully. On Tesla, looking at Tesla, I just want to call out that Tesla's looking kind of weak, but it has not officially broken down yet. So could Tesla break down? Yes, but we have to wait and see, in my opinion, just to be safe. So if you look at, excuse me, sorry guys. If you look at Tesla, this thing has been essentially just uptrending for the last couple of weeks. Okay, it's been uptrending and uptrending and uptrending. What's important about this is that Tesla's making higher highs and higher lows, and it's holding this trend line of support right over here. It's holding up decently thus far. But the question is Tesla going to break down? Are we about to see a rug pull on Tesla, or is Tesla going to try to hold support? If Tesla ends up, and I think it's going to depend a lot on the news that comes out for Tesla for tomorrow and all the data. if we're bearish on Tesla, you need to see this support break. We haven't broken it yet. And then our last point of hope is going to be this like 230 to 233 area. If you look at Tesla on the 4-hour time frame, you will see that that's where our 200 EMA happens to be at this 234 area. So we'll be watching to see, does Tesla hold support or not? Because if we fail, there could be a move like this back down to 230. Once we lose 230, we turn a lot more bearish, and Tesla could actually dip a little bit towards 225, if not 223, to fill the gap down here. There's actually a gap down here. Then I think that's going to be a really good dip buying opportunity, not financial advice. Then we could see a really nice monstrous bounce to end the year. I just wanted to make that as clear as possible. That's like the more bearish case, depending on the data. I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't know what the data is going to cause. So we just want to be very patient looking at all this information. Going into the bullish case, if we hold the trend line and we just continue to uptrend, we could see Tesla just try pushing up higher like this before we get some kind of breakout later on. That's like another possibility where it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter, then just breaks out like later. That's like the more bullish case. Uh, I'm honestly open-minded to anything, so it all depends on if we get the break to the downside or not. So we'll be watching this level very carefully to see if this white trend line holds. As of right now, it's been holding support. Although Tesla has some weakness, we'll be watching to see if this holds and see how the data tomorrow ends up affecting the share price. Okay, so make sure you watch 233 to 230 as key support. If we lose that, we turn more bearish. Watch the trend line. If we hold it, we try bouncing off of it. Tesla could be trying to get back above 240. If we hold above 240, our next target is going to likely be around this 246 area. So watch and see just to be safe. On the QQQ, it's looking a little bit weaker because of Nvidia, but we haven't officially broken below 383 yet. So it all depends on the data tomorrow. It's very simple. Good data could launch this back up towards this imbalance, making our way, up to like 388 and potentially even 390. That's the bullish case if we get decent data tomorrow. If the data causes some downside, I think that we're going to be watching 383. If we lose 383 on the QQQ, this thing is going to be sinking to this imbalance. I think we're going to eventually make our way down towards 380, and then we have 378 below that. It all depends on this data. One of the things I said on Friday was that I'm not like super fixated on being a bull or a bear, even if people do anticipate downside going into like the FOMC meeting. I'm going to be watching the data. I'm going to be looking at the trend lines and make sure we get the break first before I turn into like a mega bull or mega bear. And then if we do get some kind of dip, I just see an opportunity to buy for the end of the year squeeze that's coming. That's like the way I see it. So I'm very open-minded. I'm going to try my best to be as unbiased as possible in giving this analysis. That's why it's very important to watch the data tomorrow. Right now, the QQQ is looking kind of weak since we have like a head and shoulders and returning distributive. So it is looking a little weaker on the charts right now, but it hasn't officially broken down yet. We haven't broken our key support. So I wouldn't turn into like a mega bear just yet. I want to wait and see if we get the break and if we end up approaching this 200 EMA. We do look bearish. We are technically downtrending slowly, but we haven't officially broken the critical support that's going to sink this thing much lower. And we have to wait and see if that happens. If that happens, then the QQQ is going to be sinking. It looks weak, so make sure you're very careful. On Apple's kind of flat right now. It's at 189. We need to see this thing lose 188. If we lose that after some bad data comes out, then 187.5 is our last sign of hope. If that fails, Apple's going to be sinking back down towards 185, and I think that's going to be our next target. If we're bullish on Apple, you want to see it get back above 190, then we have this like unfilled gap towards this 191 area. I am open-minded as it all depends on the data, so we'll just have to wait and see. But the chart is downtrending a bit, and from a technical standpoint, we are looking a bit more bearish, but it's not super strong. We're not insanely bearish, we're just a tiny bit more bearish, and we'll see what happens with the data. That's going to be the biggest determiner if we get some kind of bounce or not. On Nvidia, we're also looking bearish. We're continuing to downtrend, but I'm not officially fixated on the fact that Nvidia is just going to crash from here, since we did technically hold 450. If we get bad data tomorrow, if the jobs numbers are just not the best, the market doesn't like them, if the ISM manufacturing data shows too much contraction, this could be negative for the stock market. If there's too much contraction in the data, this could lead to more recessionary fears. And we're going to be watching Nvidia at 450. If we get some bad data, too much contractionary data, Nvidia could lose 450 and sink back down to 444, if not 440. If we're bullish after the data comes out, you want to see it break above 457.5. If that breaks, we're going to be looking for 459 and then 462 to 465. As of right now, from a technical standpoint, Nvidia is looking kind of weak, but it's just barely holding 450. I think that whether it breaks this or not will depend on all the data for tomorrow. But it is looking kind of weak, so just be open-minded and we'll see how it goes. This is one of those days where I just want to be open-minded just to be safe, and I can't make any promises just yet. I want to call out that NEO has earnings coming out tomorrow, and the technicals look kind of bullish as we have a bullish divergence, and this thing is starting to break out. But just to be safe, we'll see if earnings help this thing continue to break towards $8 or if it rejects right here. So that's a play if you're interested in looking at. AMC stock is starting to look a little bullish. It got decimated basically after all the things that were announced, but we have a nice cup that's forming on it. I think that AMC could slowly make its way back up to at least $8 over the next week. On SoFi, I think that SoFi is looking, in my opinion, it's trying to uptrend for now, but I think that we have this bearish looking divergence right here, and it's going to be very reactive to the data tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if we retest 7.5 and then try to bounce. So I think that there could be some downside, so we'll just have to wait and see. On the IWM or the Russell 2000, this has a bearish divergence that's developing, and we're trying to push up higher. There's no sign of it breaking down yet, as the overall chart and the trend is still very strong, and it's trying to push up towards that 190 area. It could backtest its EMA at 185, could drop a little bit below that, and then just retest the breakout zone and then bounce. But overall, the chart looks bullish. I think that the downside would be very minimal, and I think it's just going to continue to uptrend. The IWM still looks very strong. It looks stronger than SPY right now. It looks stronger than the QQQ. So it could actually outperform the market and continue to push higher. Looking at Microsoft, in my video from yesterday, I was talking about some downside. It still has some downside coming as it's starting to flag right here. Make sure you watch support right here around this 367 area. If we lose that, there's going to be 363. 357 is critical support, which is where we could bounce from. It looks like it's going to try to bounce here. It could depend on the data. Decent data could bring us to 375 again. Bearish data will take it back down to 365. My gut tells me it might retest 375 then reject. So look for a potential bounce here since they grabbed liquidity on the 4-hour. So I think that 375 can be tested in a rejection. Watch that very carefully on Microsoft. On AMD, similar to Microsoft, we have this like wick forming, looking a little bearish, but once again, we'll be watching to see how this reacts to all this data. The 4-hour is looking a little bit weaker. The daily chart's looking a bit weaker on AMD, so it looks like it could actually retest the support around 118. If we lose this support, I anticipate it's going to be making its way back down towards 113, just around that support right there. 113 is going to be our next target if this thing ends up losing 118. So look for a little downside move. AMD could actually turn down a bit. So watch that very carefully. The VIX has finally tried to break out, but it actually is not that much of a convincing break. It kind of pushed up and came back down as a gap below. So it is possible the VIX comes down as the market tries to just bounce a bit before it continues higher. But for now, like I said, guys, this is not a convincing breakout yet. We didn't even get above the 20 EMA yet on the daily. We're still below it. We're still barely holding 13. So we'll just have to see if the VIX could get the break. My gut's telling me it's going to come down to fill this gap and then balance. But just to be safe, we just want to watch it. The dollar on the daily chart's trying to break out, but it's still below the 20 EMA. We'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. Coinbase is looking like it has this big gap below. It kind of gapped up and got rejected. Might come down to fill this gap and then bounce off 133 to continue higher. Still looks very, very strong on the daily, but it's very overbought. I think it's due to pull back to 133 before it ends up pushing again. The daily RSI is at 86, which is a little bit too much. That's not even like as overbought as what like SPY was. So watch it very carefully. Google has this unfilled gap. It still looks kind of weak on the daily chart, so it doesn't look like it's ready yet. If it gets above 131, watch for this gap fill around 132.9 for rejection. It might make its way down to 125 though slowly, so I think it might pop and then drop towards 125. Look for a pop and drop on Google. For Amazon, we're looking a little weak. We have this gap to fill. I think it might push up for 145 plus tomorrow, then reject and come back down towards 143.5. And finally, for Meta on the daily time frame, especially, we're going to be looking for this unfilled gap up here. If we have this unfilled gap around 324, we could actually push up for 324 to fill the gap and then reject. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. But for now, look at these levels very carefully. We're going to be very, very patient. And on top of this, we're getting very tight on the daily MACD. It's getting very, very tight right now. So we'll just have to see how that ends up going. I'll watch 448.94, at least for the time being on SPY. This could be a target for like the much later term if we do end up seeing somewhat of a move to the downside. But for now, there's no confirmation yet. I just wanted to call out that level. So honestly, guys, we'll just have to wait and see what the data causes. I wish I could predict what the move is going to be, but uh, it doesn't make sense to just guess. I don't really want to guess what the move is going to be. We have a gap above to fill. There's also like, a potential flag forming. So the best thing to do is just be patient and wait this one out. That's what I'm going to be doing. We might see a little pop coming, but we'll see if we reject right off our supply zone and come back down, and if we keep going higher. If it breaks above 458, we could turn bullish and we could get very close to 460 one more time. We'll see if that rejects there or not. For bearish, you want to see SPY lose this orange trend line, that 454 zone. We want to lose that, and then this thing is going to start sinking even lower. So make sure you watch support and see if we get the break. Today we tried to break, but we failed, and we saw buyers come back to defend. So be patient and do what you have to do, guys. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Don't forget the data is coming out tomorrow, which is going to be really, really important. And the best thing to do when we have days like this is just to be very patient. I expect a very big move tomorrow, starting at we may make somewhat of a move at like 9:45, but the real move is going to come at 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow, 30 minutes after market open. So the best thing I could tell you is just watch your levels, be patient, and we'll see what happens from there. Once again, do not turn overly bearish. Do not turn overly bullish. Just wait and see which way we break. Be patient, and we'll see what that causes from there. That's the best thing I could tell you guys. I know it may be frustrating to some people, but for now, I just want to be open-minded. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next one tomorrow morning. All right. Thank you. Have a good one. Market to the moon because the long term is still very bright despite these short-term fluctuations. And peace out.